Hey everybody, it's Murray here and welcome back to my channel M Stewart Paintings. On today's acrylic painting tutorial we're going to paint this gorgeous realistic sunset over some marshes to create a really realistic landscape. So let's get into it. So a nice and easy tutorial today. We're going to need the following colours. They are titanium white, cad yellow, matte orange, rose pink, cerulean blue, cobalt blue, chromium oxide green, iris purple, burnt umber and ivory black. Now I've got a burnt sienna stain canvas that I've used cobalt blue just to create a outline. I've got half the canvas as the sky and half the canvas as some marshes. We're going to have some faraway trees in the background that sort of pitter off into the distance. We're going to have some of these lovely marshes and this gorgeous sunset, and we're going to have it reflecting onto the water below. And I'm going to make a nice light dark corner just as usual so I can sign it. So we're going to have the sun here and we're going to have lots of light. So if you'd like to pause the video and copy down the outline, feel free to do so, and we'll get started with the painting. So just like always, we're just going to get some white and we're just going to create a little circle for our sun. And then we're going to try to create some heat around the sun and some glow. We're going to have a nice faded horizon, so a nice faded sky. And then we're going to have some clouds and we're going to have some trees. So we're going to do quite a lot of realism today using colours. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to make a creamy yellow. So we're going to add loads of white, a little bit of yellow and a dot of brown. So loads and loads of white, a dot of brown and a little bit of yellow, and we're just going to make this off-white, this sort of creamy white. And the reason we're going to make a really light horizon is we're going to have these really beautiful trees, and I'm going to teach you how to use colour to make it look like the heat from the sun is sort of bellowing down on these trees. So all we're going to do, we're just going to block in our painting. So don't worry if it's streaky or anything, we'll neaten everything up later. So we're just going to make a little bit of a darker shade, so still plenty of white, a little bit more yellow this time. So just a little bit more, and a dot of orange. Just be careful, orange is really overpowering, and a dot of brown. So just a dot of orange, so we want it more yellow than anything. And we're just going to make a darker shade of yellow. It's still really pastel, and it's just as the sky sort of fades out away from the sun, it just gets a little bit darker. So all we're doing, we just add a tiny bit of yellow and orange to the mix, just to imply that. So what we're trying to do today is we're going to try to create reflections. So we're going to create the same colours in the water around the marshes below, so almost like a mirror. So what we're going to do, we're going to use the same colours around. So the great thing is I've used cobalt blue for an outline, so I can paint all over the top of it and it will still shine through. So I'm just using the lighter shade on the left hand side and a little slightly darker shade on the right hand side. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to block in around these marshes and try to create a reflection. So this is a really easy technique. You can do this on any painting. So just think of a mirror. So we're just going to add a little bit more yellow. Still a bit of white. Just so it's really nice and pastel. So a little bit more brighter, a little bit more vibrant with more yellow. And we're just going to create a circle around our sun just to create the glow effect. So if you think of a big ball of light, we're just going to create this lovely glow of the sun. And we're just going to smudge that into our canvas into the previous colours. So all I'm doing, I'm just using this nice creamy yellow just to sort of create a glow of the sun. And then as the sky cools, we're going to get a little bit darker, so we're going to add some yellow and orange together. So you can see, look how much orange overpowers the yellow, so you only need a little bit. And we're going to add some brown to make it a bit more earthy, and still plenty of white. So we've got this really nice peachy tone now. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a tone before we start adding the pinks and the hotter colours. We're just going to create this nice pastel orange. We're just blending it into the previous colours. And we're just going to try to create, as the sky gets darker, it gets a slightly bit cooler, so we're just using a bit of orange to make that effect. So I'm just going to block around my clouds. Don't worry if you paint over your clouds. The great thing is if you create an outline and then dry your painting, look, if you paint over areas, it doesn't really matter. So look, all I'm going to do, I'm just going to blend this in. I'm just going to have a little bit of that orange just coming from the side and just on the horizon, just to create a little glow. I still want that really nice pastel colour because it's really, really sharp, and I want that to reflect down into the water to create a shimmer. And I'm just going to continue blocking up this corner. So as I say, look, if your outline is nice and dry, look, if you paint over the clouds, it doesn't really matter. And the great thing about the cobalt blue is you can have a lovely outline still shining through. So when you go to do the detail, you can just colour it in almost. It's really easy. So we're going to get some yellow and a little bit of white. And I'm just going to match the glow of the sun. Now we've changed it. Just below in the water. So everything we do, we just want to match. And I'm just going to get some orange and yellow. A little bit of white. Tiny bit of brown. Just going to colour this area a little bit now. It's dry, and just going to thicken it up and just match it again in the water. Look, just to create that glow. Really, really easy. We can have it coming down into these marshes here. So we're just trying to think of a mirror. So we've got this lovely transitions now. And now we're going to get even warmer. So we're going to use this really gorgeous bright pink. So it's rose pink, and we're just going to add a little bit of orange and a little bit of yellow just to heat it up a little bit. And we're just going to put some white into it because it's a bit overpowering. So quite a lot of white actually. We're going to make it very pastel. So a little bit of orange, a little bit of yellow, and loads of white. I'm just going to heat it up a little bit more with a bit of orange. And a little bit of brown just to suck a bit of the colour out. There we go, that's looking fab. So we've got this really, really vibrant pink now. And all we're going to do, don't worry about blending it or anything at the moment. We're just going to block in this top of our painting. So as I say, there'll probably be a big jump between the orange and the pink. We'll blend that in a minute. So you can blend it slightly, look, by creating the X shapes. But don't worry, once it's dry, we'll blend it. But the really good thing about using the dry cobalt blue for our outlines, even though I'm painting over the blue now with this pastel pink, it still shows up underneath. So look, if you cover the whole top of your painting with this lovely bright pink and you go over your clouds, don't worry, because if you've done an outline like myself, you can still see them, and then we'll block them in later. So we don't want to worry about any detail at the moment. We just want to get a big brush and we just want to block in all the top of this painting. So go right up to the corner. Use plenty of paint. I've got hardly any water, just loads and loads of paint. And we just cover up this corner. Hooray! And then, because there's a big jump, we'll blend it later, so don't worry, we won't have a horrible big jump. But while I've got this pink that we've made, I'm going to utilise that, and we're just going to block in this corner. And I'm just going to create the reflection again. So I'm just going to get lots of paint to this section here, and then I'm just going to gradually let the paint run out on my brush. And I'm just going to start blending it. So I'm just going back and forth, and I'm just letting that chalky, there's hardly any paint, look, I'm just blending it into the lovely light buttery yellow that we had for the horizon colour. And then I'm going to teach you how to make these blues. So I've got them pre-mixed, but all you do is you add cerulean blue and cobalt blue together. So cerulean blue and cobalt together, and you should get royal blue. And then if you just add a little bit of white and a dot of purple, you should get the darker shade. So look, this is that shade. So if you just add a dot of purple, you'll get that shade. And then if you want to make it even lighter, just add loads and loads of white, and you should get the lighter shade. I've got a little bit of pink on my brush, I've just noticed, but never mind. So it's making it a little bit more silvery. So it's cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and lots of white, and a dot of purple. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to make my corners of my painting cooler. So I'm just using this really nice pastel blue, and I'm just going right into the corners, and I'm just blending it into the pink. I'm going to go right to the top of my painting just to frame it. So just like always with the tutorials, the reason I'm darkening up my corners is to make it look like the sunset is fading away and getting cooler, but also it draws the viewer into the middle of the painting, and because we've got that nice shimmer with the light whitey yellow, it'll just get people to look down into the middle of our composition. And all I'm going to do, look, I'm just blending it gently, I'm just letting the paint run out, and we should have this lovely blocked in sky. So we're going to work on just blending some of the transitions, just so there's not so much jump in all the colours. But the colours are really lovely, they're really pretty, they're really pastel. So all we're going to do now, we've got our lovely cool corners that draws you towards the middle and towards the sun. We're just going to work on the blending, which is going to take 5 minutes. So if you dry your painting, and then if you just get some white, and we'll just create a nice vibrant sun. So just by giving it 2 coats of paint, you can make your sun extremely vibrant. And all I'm going to do, I'm just going to mix up some of that white and yellow. So white and yellow, and I'm just going to create the glow around the sun again. So all it is white and yellow, just create a little circle. Super easy, look at that. So we've got a nice glow. And then all we're going to do, we're going to mix some of that orange and yellow. So lots of yellow, a little bit of orange, and some white. You should get like a golden yellow. A dot of brown, just to make it more pastel, not as harsh. And all we're going to do, look, we're just going to blend it slightly. So while the paint is wet, all we're going to do, look, we're just going to go right up to it, and we're just going to make this area a little bit more brighter, because this area's got the sun in that corner. So I'm just going to make it a little bit higher. And look, we're just going to gently blend it, so I'm hardly putting any pressure down. So I'm just going to create a little circle, and I'm going to wipe away 90% of the paint. So I've got hardly any paint, look, I've got hardly any paint on my brush. I'm just going to start blending it really gently. So I'm almost like colouring it into this nice yellow. So again, there's not as much of a jump in colour. And you can go between the colours. So look, if I go back to the yellow, load up my brush, I can make the glow a bit bigger. And the same technique, look, I can just have hardly any paint on my brush. I can just blend the 2 colours, just to create that sort of fire almost in the sky there. So there we go, it's nice and blended. So I'm just going to get a bit more paint, just make it a little bit bigger. There we go. So anyone watched the tutorial last week where we did the glow around the sun with the clouds? Same technique, we've got hardly any paint on our brush. The canvas is dry, so it's really easy to blend. And we're just going to do some blending here again, just so all our transitions are super smooth. So take your time, have hardly any paint on a dry brush, and just use the softness of the brush just to blend. So I'm just going to match that with the pink. I'm just going to blend it all together. Look, I've got hardly any paint. Super soft. So, look, watch. Just going to wipe away all the paint, and I can just blend it over the top of that dry pink. And the canvas, because it's texturized, will just take off a tiny bit of the chalky residue and just blend it. So that looks excellent. So I'm really liking the water. So let's do a bit in the sky. So I'm just going to get some yellow and white. Just going to make this a bit nicer. just to create that glow from the sun. So again, you can use your fingers just to smudge it. So we've got this lovely blended transition now around the sky and matching in the water. So I'm just going to make some of the really pale light yellow. So it's just lots of white and a dot of yellow and a dot of brown. So predominantly white than anything. So we've got this really pastel yellow. And I'm just going to make the shimmer on the water and some in the sky just a little bit more pastel. Because I want this area for the viewer to focus down the middle. So I'm just creating a light shimmer just so someone who's looking at the paint has something to focus on. So again, look, watch, I'm going to wipe away all the paint. I haven't got a bit of kitchen towel handy, so I'm just going to use my hand. And look, I'm just going to blend it. It's got hardly any paint, look at that. Just make that transition, that shimmer, that light look really realistic. Look at that. So that is looking fab. So we've got this really nice glow. We've got this nice bit in the middle that's a bit lighter, but we've got a big jump between the orange and the pink. I really like the water. I think the water is perfectly blended, so that's all done. So I'm just going to blend the orange and the pink together. So I'm just going to get some of that orange that we just made. And I now got a bit of kitchen towel. And I'm just going to wipe away 90% of the paint. And I'm just going to blend some of this. Look, you can even create some clouds. Look, you can even create some shapes of clouds. You always get little clouds at the horizon. So look, by just leaving gaps, it sort of implies sort of little floating clouds. And then we're just going to do the same in the sky. So all I'm going to do is put paint on my brush, wipe away 90% of it. I'm just going to smudge it into the pink. So look, I'm just going to smudge it while it's dry. It's hardly any paint. I'm just going to make these transitions look softer. Because if you imagine all the light is sort of coming out from that sun. So we're just trying to smudge that lighter colour into the pink. So there we go. We could add a little bit more paint here in this corner because that's right above the sun. So, but just going down the line where the two colours merge, look, you can just smudge it and just make it less harsh. Obviously, we're going to add the clouds over, so you shouldn't notice it. Here we go. Let's have a bit. Oh no, I must have picked up a bit of white. Well, this is a good bit to show you. Look, if you've got a dry painting and you make a mistake, look, you can just wipe it away. Ta-da! And your underpainting is still there. So at each stage, I always try my work at each stage. So say before I paint the clouds on the top or anything like that, I always dry my work, and it's just a good little technique. And what it does, it just assures you that if you make a mistake, you can just wipe away what you've made a mistake on and your painting is still there underneath. So look, all I'm doing, I'm going back to the orange and I'm just smudging it in and making this transition a lot softer. So look at that. All blended. So the sky is always the hardest bit and the blending is always the hardest bit. So well done everybody for doing a nice blended sky. So we've got this fantastic shimmer now. And we've got all these lovely blended colours with the cool corners all matching. So we've got this lovely glow around our sun. So now we're going to paint in the clouds. So first we're going to work on the colours and then we'll work on the detail. So we're going to get some of this cool purple. So you can make that with just purple and cobalt blue and a little bit of white. So purple, cobalt blue and a little bit of white. And you should get this cool purple that I use called iris purple. And then we're just going to add pink to it. So we're trying to mix a colour that's not too hot and not too cold. Think of the three little bears. It's right in the middle. So it's not too freezing, it's not too warm. We're just going to add a bit of brown to make it more grey. And then we're just going to put plenty of white in it just to make it more pastel, not make it as harsh. So we should have this purpley grey. So let's test that out on the palette, see what it looks like. Yeah, that should do. And then what we're going to do, we're just going to block in some big shapes of clouds. So always remember, acrylics dry darker. So even though it looks really pastel now, I've got a feeling it's going to dry a bit dark on my canvas. So again, look, if you've got a dry painting, dry sky, and you lay a cloud on and you don't like the shape or anything, you can just wipe it away with a baby wiper or some wet kitchen towel. So look, all I'm going to do, I'm just going to use a big brush, just going to block in this big cloud. Got my nice cobalt blue outline so I can see where to block it in. And then let's do the same with these littler ones. So again, let's just have a rough shape of where I'm going to put things. So let's have a big one here. And let's have some over here. Sort of blending in with that dark blue corner, I like that. And a little bit up here. Sort of breaking away. And another one here. So as you can see, look, it's dried really dark. So all I'm going to do is to make the edges of the cloud fluffy, I'm just going to wipe away some of the paint. And I'm just going around the edges just to make them more marshmallowy, more fluffy. So that's a little trick again. So just like we did with the blending, look, if you go around the edges of your clouds, you can just make them more soft. And again, look, you can even have some low ones just by doing the same technique. So I think that purple's a bit harsh, so what we're going to do is we're just going to make a nice sort of orangey colour. So we're just going to get some orange, yellow, to create that golden yellow, and we're just going to bridge the two colours together. So I'm just going to mix some of that golden yellow and a little bit more white just to make it more pastel into that purpley grey that we've got. And just towards the sun, I'm just going to make it a little bit more hotter. So again, look, you're just using hot colours to imply heat around the sun, and you just use cool colours in the opposite direction to make it look more in the shadow. So look at that, super easy. Again, look, just letting the paint run out and just gently blending it into that purple. It's just glazing over the top. So that cloud is nearest the sun, so it's getting plenty of heat. So these bases of these clouds, these bottoms of these clouds, we'll be doing the same. So that we can just do the exact same trick. Same with this one. Now I think the cloud is a bit too big. It's a bit of an eyesore, isn't it? So I'm going to show you a little trick. And so now we've got these lovely colours. We've got the hots and the colds. I'm going to show you a little trick how to, if you don't like the shape of your clouds, you can change them. So there's nothing we can't fix when painting. So what you can do, you can mix some of the sky colour. So I'm just going to mix some yellow and orange and white. So let's get plenty of yellow and orange. A bit of brown. Loads of white. I'm just going to make some of the sky colour. I'm just going to get a fine liner. And all I'm going to do, look, I'm going to paint back in some of the sky and change the shape of the clouds. So if you don't like the shape of them, look, you can always make them thinner. You can always break them apart and put little gaps. So that's what I'm doing now. So just making this. Now we've got the lovely transition in the colour. Look, I'm going to just poke some holes just to make it look like some of the sky is shining through. It's a really easy technique. If you use a really thin brush, it's easy to poke little holes. So just try to match the colours of the sky. So just going to poke some holes in here. Let's do some up here. I've got that colour. So I'm just making the shapes of the clouds look a bit more prominent just by going and creating some holes. And if your dry is darker, look, if your dry is darker, you can always just lighten it up. Up at the top here, we've got a bit more pink. So look, I can always just add a bit of pink and just do the same technique. So I can use the pink to poke holes. So look, if you just lighten it up by adding a little bit more white, if the sky colour does dry a little bit dark, like mine has, look around here, you just put a little bit white and just go over the top. No one would know. It's an easy trick. So there we go, just using that colour just to imply some gaps in between. Just create the realism. So let's poke some holes up this end. That looks fab. That looks much more realistic now. It's not such an eyesore, is it? It's not, it doesn't take up half the sky. So look, I'm just doing the exact same thing with the pink. Just poking some holes, just making those clouds less harsh, a bit more realistic. Same up here, look, poke back some sky. So I've got this lovely transition now. We've got this lovely transition in the background sky and in the clouds. And then all we're going to do, we're just going to mix some of that pink, yellow and orange and white together. So there we go, we've got sort of a peach colour, a little bit of brown, and a little bit of white. Bit yellow, and all I'm going to do is going to wipe away most of the paint again. There we go. Just going to make the edges of this cloud a bit lighter, so I'm just almost colouring it in. Look, I'm just going over the edges. I'm just going to smear it with my finger. I'm just going to try to make them look like they're getting a bit bleached by the sun. So I'm just trying to make it look like the light is sort of taking a bit of the colour out of them. So literally just colouring them in and just smearing it with my fingers. And same up here. Just where the light is hitting the bottom of these clouds. So there we go. And when it dries, it just should make them look further back, more pastel. There we go. Here on the top of this one. So it's literally just colouring them in, just going over the top, just smearing it. Look. There we go. Just looks a little bit more pastel, a little bit nicer, not as harsh. So dry your work, please, because if you've got a nice dry painting, so just use the hairdryer or just let it air dry for 5 minutes. Because what we're going to do, we're going to create some sunbeams. So if you've got a nice dry background, if you make a mistake, it doesn't really matter, you can just wipe it away. So we're going to get plenty of white and yellow. So lots of white and yellow. We're going to get a dry brush. So this brush is completely dry, very soft to the touch. We're going to wipe away 95% of the paint on a paper towel. And all we're going to do, we're just going to come up diagonally. I don't really like this corner. I don't really like that cloud. So I'm going to use a sunbeam just to sort of get rid of it. I'm just going to poke through it. So what I'm doing, I'm just creating little diagonal lines coming out from the center sun. So I'm just using that circle to come out from. So look, just diagonals. And I'm just creating these straight lines. Just to make it look like the sun is shining. These little sunbeams are coming out. There we go. And then what you can do, look, you can just glaze over the top. So just like we did with the clouds, got hardly any paint on my brush. Just make little gaps of sky. Just those little gaps in colour. Just make the horizon look a bit lighter. Just soften everything up. So that looks awesome. So there we go, nice and soft, nice and pastel. I'm just going to get some yellow and white. So plenty of white. And all I'm going to do, just around the sun, I'm just going to put back the glow. So I'm just going to go over them a little bit, just to make them look a bit brighter. A little bit more yellow. And there you go, I'm just putting back the glow, look, and just going round it. Just coming up from it. Just so they're not as harsh. I want them really subtle today. So there we go, we've got our sky all complete and we've got our water all complete. So now we're going to start working on the tree line here and then start working on the marshes. So easy peasy stuff. So first we're going to create heat around the trees. So what we're going to do, we're going to use this chromium oxide green. Now if you don't have that, you can just use sap green. But what we want to do is we want to mix loads of orange and a little bit of brown into green. So we want to add loads of heat by adding orange to green. So still plenty of green, but we want to add lots of orange, and we just want to create and block in, just like we did with the clouds. We're just going to work on the colour first and then we'll change all the shape if we have to. We just want to create a nice heated olive sort of colour. So this is all the heat from that sun, creating all the heat around these tree lines. So we're just going to have some big, some small. So again, we're just blocking it in. And then we're going to get some more orange. And we're just going to go straight underneath that sun. So all the heat. So we're using oranges and lighter colours to imply heat. So these are some trees. All that sunlight is coming through. So if I zoom in for you, so you can see it a little bit better. So I'm just blending orange into it. I'm just using the edge of the brush just to create some sort of twigs and bristles. I'm trying to make all the trees different heights. You don't want them all the same height. So if you have one really big one, have one next to it quite small. So look, just try and make them all different heights. Just again to create the realism. So I'm just adding more and more orange. I think it's still a bit too dark. That's the thing about painting. Sometimes you have to put it on your canvas to test it out and see what works. Because if I have it this dark, it brings it too far forward, I think. So I want to push it back. So what I'm going to do first, I'm just going to get some blue and some green. So cobalt blue and green, just to make a really dark shadow colour. So if you mix the two together, you should have a hot colour now and a cool colour. And all I'm going to do, look, just at the base of these trees, I'm just going to make it a little bit darker. So this is the area that's in the shade, that's hardly getting any sunlight, because it's got its sort of back to the sun. So we're just going to use that dark colour at the base. Yeah, I think that orange is too harsh. So all I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to add some texture using that dark colour first. So all I'm doing, I'm leaving little gaps in the underpainting. I'm just implying, just using this dark colour, just sort of foliage and trees and branches. There we go. Got some trees sort of fading off into the distance here in the corner. Yeah, I think it's still a bit too harsh, too dark. We want to keep our darkest darks to the foreground, so by having this dark here, it's bringing it too close, and we want to push it back. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add some yellow and some orange. So yellow and orange together. And I'm going to make a really vibrant peach colour. So yellow and orange to create this really pastel, really vibrant colour. And all I'm going to do, look, I'm going to just colour in this area here and make it really saturated now. So just by using this really nice peach colour, look, on the top, it just sort of bleaches, just like we did with the clouds. It just makes the edges not as harsh and pushes it further back. So look, just under the sun, all these trees would be really getting that heat, really getting that light. So again, just like we did with the darker colour, look, we can just poke holes and leave bits of the underpainting to shine through. So look, all I'm going to do, look, I'm just going to create sort of the illusion of texture by leaving some of that dark green and orange to poke through. So by just creating splats, look, little splats. Just using a little bit of orange here. Leaving plenty of that green. I want it nice and dark at the base, because obviously in this corner, because it's not getting as much sunlight. So there we go, that looks kind of texturized, doesn't it? And then just like we did with the clouds, because our trees are a bit blobby and a bit all over the shop, we're just going to mix some of the sky colour. So just off camera, I've just at the bottom of the palette, I've just got some of the white and yellow. And all I'm going to do, look, with a fine liner, just like we did with the clouds, I'm just going to poke some sky back in and make all the sort of trees different heights, and just have some little bits of the sky poking through in between them. Again, just to create the realism. So look, by just doing this, you can make some tall, some big, some small. And just have little gaps in between some of them. Now we got that colour in, and we got the texture. Should start looking more realistic. So look, we're just going to add some gaps. Have some sunlight shining through. There we go. Just going to smudge it, just so it's not as harsh. So that's pushed those trees back, and then these trees in the far distance, they're going to be a bit cooler. So we don't want to use really harsh colours, so we're going to mix some green and blue, but we don't want to bring it forward. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a little bit of purple, so green, blue and purple. We're just going to mix that together, a tiny bit of brown and some white. So we're going to create a greeny grey now, so it's got plenty of white in it, and the blue and the purple will just push it back, it will just desaturize it. So all I'm doing, look, I'm just joining this up to that corner, and I'm just, again, just making random shapes of far off bushes and a tree line. I'm just linking it into these ones, and again you've got this transition between the hots and the colds. So all this sort of area will be more in the shade, but we don't want it black or anything because it would bring it forward. So by using this really nice sort of pastel-y bluey grey, greeny grey, excuse me, what it does, it just pushes these trees far off into the distance. So there we go, that's all dry. So now we're going to block in the marshes. So we're going to get some of the chromium oxide green, because that's a mouthful. Sounds like a transformer or something. Chromium oxide. It's a bizarre name. And then we're just going to add some brown and some blue to it. So green, blue and brown. And we're just going to make a really nice dark green. And all we're going to do, we're just going to use a big brush and we're just going to block in our marshes. So again, don't worry about any detail. We just want to block it in. So what we do the shadow color first, and then we can put some of the light and highlights and then some of the detail on afterwards. So just pile the paint on, just have it nice and covered. So if I zoom out so you can see the actual marshes itself now. So with marshes, they're all sort of wonky. They all sort of stick out and you have little gaps in between them. Sort of like a swamp or something. So what we want to do, we just want to go right up to them. We've got this nice sort of roughly straight horizon. Doesn't matter if it's not too straight. But what we want to try to do is have all different shapes and sizes. So some are going to be quite thin, like this one. This could be quite small. And then up here, because we don't want it all the same angles and all the same sizes. So just like the clouds, we want to have some big, some small. So this one I'm going to make a little bit smaller and a bit fatter, just so it looks a bit different. Have a bobble on the side of it. Now I'm leaving the left hand corner because I want to make that really dark, so I'm going to use a different colour for the left hand corner because that's where I'm going to sign it. So I want the left hand corner as dark as possible. So we've got this nice light coming down over the tree line, so we're going to match that in the grass and the marshes. So we're going to use that orange and yellow that we mixed just a minute ago, and all we're going to do is just create some texture. So again, this is some sunlight beaming down onto these marshes. So just by using the orange and yellow and hotting it up, so creating some heat using colour, we can imply sunlight. So all we're doing, we're just trying to think where the sun would be shining down on these marshes. And we're just creating the light effect using that orange and yellow. So all this area will be getting a bit of sunlight. It's all coming through those trees. Same on this side a little bit. So just load up my brush, make it a little bit brighter, why not? So this area will be getting lots of sun. There we go, just blending it into the previous colour. So that's starting to look really nice. So we've got this nice hot oranges on the left hand side, and then we've got more cooler blues, and then we're just going to add some blue and brown together. So cobalt blue and brown, please. If you mix together, you should get a really dark colour. Got a little bit of green, but predominantly blue and brown, please. And we're going to create a really dark shadow colour now, but it's still got some green in it. And this is going to be all the bits of the marshes that are in the shade. So all the underneath bits. So all I'm doing, I'm just going underneath it. I'm just trying to create a really thick edge. So all this long grass and marshes are in the shade. And while I've got that colour, I'm going to block in my left hand corner because I want to use a light colour for my signature. So I need a dark colour for my signature to stand out against. And all I'm doing, I'm just creating sort of texture by using this dark colour to create sort of impressions in the marshes, in the grass. So look, I'm just creating a nice outer bank. So this outer bank, if I zoom in so you can see a bit better. So again, look, it's like we did with the trees. It's just using colour to imply texture. So if you think all these edges would have their backs to the sun, so they're almost silhouetted. And by just using a darker colour, it just makes it look more three-dimensional. So there we go. We're just going to make this area look like it's in the shade. Add a bit of texture. But there's hardly any detail in any of these paintings. It's the colours that create the realism. So there we go. That one looks cool. Let's do the bottom one. So again, you would be quite in the shade here. So you're more cooler and darker. Got a nice thick edge. And then if you swap to a fine liner, using that dark colour, look, you can just create long grass. So all I'm doing is I'm just coming up from that really nice thick border, and I'm just creating really straight lines. And look, you can even do it in the water. So you can have some of the marshes sort of poking through the water, some of the long grass. So you get this sort of river grass, don't you? That sort of comes out. So by using, again, just using the correct brushes, by having a really thin fine liner, it makes your life so much easier. You don't have to worry. You can have some at the bottom, look, sort of coming out, peeking out of the water, why not? And all we're doing, look, we're just going from that thick edge, just going straight up. And again, just like we did with the trees, try to make them all different sort of lengths and sort of going off at different directions. You don't want them all the same height. So let's do some up here. Let's have some long, some short. That one's a bit too thick. Had too much paint on my brush, I think. So some poking through here. And then you can go downwards from the dark shadow to create reflections. So just think, now we've got the underpainting with that beautiful sort of blended sky reflecting in the water. Now look, if we come down, we can create the illusion of the grass and the marshes sort of reflecting on that water. So what I'm doing, I'm just creating the exact same lines that have gone upwards. I'm just matching it and going downwards. Again, really subtle. Let's do the same up here. So just having the reflection of this long grass in the water. So a fine liner makes your life so much easier. You can do all this fine detail. So they don't cost a lot, they cost £1 or $1. So let's do some on this side. So look, we'll create some long grass and we'll create a little bit of a reflection. We can have some poking out. Same here. So what I'm doing, I'm just smearing my brush downwards. So if I've done it going up, look, like here. All I'm going to do is have it going down at the same time. And then look, again, just have odd ones sort of poking out through the water. You can have little tufts of them. You can have some right at the bottom. Again, just using a really fine brush. So if I zoom out now, look, it's really starting to take shape. Can you see how now the orange over the trees and on that marshes creates the light effect? And now we've got the blue. So this is another brush. Look, you can use this brush. I cannot for the life of me remember what the name is, but it's got really long, spindly bristles. So look, you can get really long grass using it. It's really easy to do long grass. It's excellent for things like tree branches if you're ever painting trees. So we've used them before in the tutorial. I just cannot for the life of me remember it. So what I'm doing, look, I'm just turning my canvas sideways because it's easier rather than trying to squeeze my brush in at the bottom of my easel. All I'm doing, look, I'm just creating long grass. Same at the top, you'll see in a minute, just to frame the piece. There we go. So I'm just creating some long grass. But turn it back around, just in the corners, just to frame the piece. And then look, you can just use this brush just to have some long grass poking out through the water. So because it's got such a sharp blade of bristles, it's so easy to do things like long grass and really thin tree branches if you ever paint landscape. And again, they cost about £1. So you don't have to spend lots of money on equipment if you want to be a good painter. And then all I'm going to do, I'm just going to get some bright titanium white. I'm just going to add some of the shimmer from the sun in this corner here, just so everything matches. Just going to blend some of the yellow and white, just again so the transition is incredibly smooth. We want everything smooth, everything really, really natural. Just take your time, and when you think she's done, she's finished. So I've signed her in the bottom left hand corner, so we've got half of the paint in the sky and half as the marshes and the shimmering water. So you've learned how to do this lovely effect with colours using light on things like your trees. You've got things like sunbeams, we've got our cool corners, and you've learned how to blend to create the realism. We've got the lovely tree line, we've got the lovely blended clouds, we've learned how to poke holes and use colours to create transitions, and of course we've got these beautiful marshes with the long grass sticking out, and now we've got the underpainting. It just creates the realism. So thank you so much for watching, everyone. My name is Murray. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I think we've got about 80 to 100 painting tutorials of landscapes on the channel now. So thank you so much for supporting the channel, and don't forget to tag me with your versions of the artwork at mstuartpaints on Instagram. See you soon. Bye.